Mombasa, Kenya's bustling second city. It's a magnet for people looking for work. But there's a dark side here. In a back street, a room of extraordinary women meet to share their stories.
They would bring 2 or 3 men for each woman every night. We would be raped repeatedly.
These women are the hidden face of a regional war that seems without end. For 6 years, the Kenyan army has been part of a force fighting the Islamist militants Shabaab in Somalia. Now, a disturbing development. The BBC has discovered that Kenyan women are being abducted and trafficked to become sex slaves for Shabaab. We speak to an insider who reveals how they kidnap vulnerable women.
And you tell them, I want to take you to work like where I was working. Then we hijack them to the forest.
It's a growing problem that the Kenyan government seems to be ignoring. The few who do manage to escape are too frightened to talk openly.
Anybody who went to Somalia, irrespective of how they went there, whether willingly or whether they were trafficked, they are being looked as terrorists.
I've been to Kenya's northern coast to investigate the hidden trade in trafficked women and to hear their horrifying stories told for the very first time. The coastal city of Mombasa is predominantly Muslim. It's a city of more than 1 million people with high unemployment. And it's always had an uneasy relationship with the government. Salama Ali, whose name has been changed to protect her identity, was born and raised here. An ordinary middle-aged woman who makes her living selling fish. But 9 months ago, her life took an unexpected twist.
I am also a victim of Shabaab. 2 of my brothers disappeared without a trace after being radicalized. After that, our family was discriminated against. But some women who knew what I was going through started sharing their stories with me. We discovered there were lots of us.
Many families are shunned when relatives join Shabaab. But Salama uncovered stories about women who had been kidnapped and taken to Somalia. All of these women have covered themselves to protect their identity, and we have changed their names. They are a range of ages and faiths, but all have suffered the hands of Shabaab.
Some came back with babies, and some having contracted HIV and AIDS. Some even came back mad because of the trauma they were exposed to.
Because nothing was being done to help these women, Salama took it upon herself to train as a counselor. She set up a support group that meets in secret at undisclosed locations. The women talk of being tricked. They were promised jobs in other cities, but instead, they ended up as slaves of Shabaab.
Those men used to come and have sex with me. I can't tell you the number. For those 3 years, every man was coming to sleep with me. You could have the same man maybe only twice. The rest of the time, you were sleeping with a different man.
I was cooking for a very big team, but I did not get to see them. Those who came for food had their faces covered, but you knew they were men because of their voices. I only got to see the faces of the ones who came to have sex with me.
These men call themselves the Lions of Allah. They boast of having no mercy. The women say they are responsible for kidnapping and abusing them. Allied to Al-Qaeda, Shabaab are dedicated to creating a fundamentalist Islamic state in Somalia. The group has also carried out a string of attacks in neighboring countries, particularly Kenya. Amid these tensions, it's not easy to find out what's happening on the porous border between Kenya and Somalia. The densely wooded area is called the Boni Forest, and access is severely restricted. We are told we can see the trafficking routes from the air. The canopy below is dense, and it's no doubt difficult to monitor this area. But from the air, we're We've seen several cut lines that we're told are routes the militants use for transport between Kenya and Somalia. Back on the ground, locals on the Kenyan side of the border tell me the Boni forest is used by Al-Shabaab. They've found remains of recently abandoned camps. And I'm told that women have been spotted being transported through the forest en route to Somalia. Sureya Hersi runs a group called Sisters Without Borders. They fight for the rights of impoverished Muslim women on Kenya's northern coast. Even she has only just learned about the trafficking problem.
We never used to be aware. We discovered that actually we have women who were lured without their will and taken into Somalia. And some of them have managed to come back to now tell the stories. But it's something that is very new.
It's so new that when I finally get to see the county commissioner in Mombasa, he has no idea of the scale of the problem, and he's in charge of security.
Yeah, there could be cases of women being smuggled out. There could be a few cases of women being smuggled out.
You say a few, can you put a number?
No, I cannot be able to give you the numbers because, you see, these things are done discreetly. Nobody comes out in the open to say I am being trafficked or I have been given a job in Somalia. So people hide to go to looking for greener pastures, as it were. Yeah.
One of the reasons it's been hard to collect statistics is that those trafficked won't talk to the authorities. They say they are frightened of reprisal. Back at the office in Nairobi, I contact human rights organizations to see who is working with trafficked women. But no one, apart from Salama Ali and her support group in Mombasa, seems to be helping. I hear from Salama again. She's been alerted to some new women who've just arrived back from Somalia. So we return to the coast. Salama is now the only known resource for women who have managed to escape from Al-Shabaab, and she is becoming increasingly nervous. We've come to a secluded place along Kenya's coast, and we feel that the women will be more at ease here. They feel safer and open up about what they have been going through without having to look over the shoulder to see who's following them or who's listening to them. The last time we visited Salama, she said that after we left, she spotted some suspicious-looking people who were following her, and so we don't want them to feel unsafe for speaking to us. Habari za leo. Salama wears her trademark black niqab. The two new arrivals she wants me to meet, Faith and Aisha, are in more colorful dress. Over 3 days, I slowly gain their trust, and they tell me their shocking stories. Both young women had been tricked into traveling to the north of the country with the promise of work, before being smuggled into a life of slavery with Al-Shabaab. Faith was just 16 when she was approached by an elderly couple on the outskirts of Mombasa.
We were told that there was work in Malindi, so we were taken that day in a Nissan. We were given some water, but it's like the water was added with drugs.
She says what happens next changes her life forever.
When we gained the consciousness, there were two men inside the room. They folded our eyes with those black scarves. They raped us in that room. We were like, oh, where are we? Or maybe this is the work that we have been told we are coming to do. The tragedy started from there.
After being drugged again, Faith finally wakes up to find herself alone in a thick forest. Terrified, she spends the next 3 years of her life cooking for brutal men who she believes were Al-Shabaab fighters.
They were just like Arabs, black Somalis with long beards. They come hit me, wake up, wake up, wake up. They just made cane me like that. Wake up, you cook for us tea. They can threat you again. When you go out from here, you don't want to cook for us, we will look for you and we will find you. When you go out there, maybe you can meet wild animals or other fighters. They kill you because there are many forests from here.
As we prepare dinner, the women begin to relax and reveal more detail of their abductions. Their stories are strikingly similar. But whilst Faith spent 3 years in captivity, the ordeal lasted twice as long for Aisha. She too was promised a job by an elderly couple, this time in the town of Garissa near the Somali border. But her dream job turned into a nightmare.
We were asleep at that time. They came in and woke us with guns. They closed our nose and mouth and they kidnapped us.
The people who had promised her a job had actually sold her on to Al-Shabaab. Aisha's new job was to be a sex slave for one of their fighters.
This man that you were living with, was he always there?
Sometimes he used to go and come back with clothes with blood, but I couldn't ask anything because I was just like a slave there. Yeah.
What did you think he was doing?
He was Al-Shabaab because he used to come with guns. Yeah, I used to see guns.
Faith and Aisha have only recently escaped from captivity, but they've been left with lifelong reminders of their time with Al-Shabaab.
When I was raped in that room, so I was pregnant. I was just alone in the forest. Even when the labor pains came, I didn't know if there was something that maybe it wanted to come out because I was not used to, because of my first pregnancy.
Faith delivered her child entirely alone in the middle of the night in a forest held prisoner by Al-Shabaab. With only her scarf to cover the baby, she says she was lucky to have a little knowledge from her grandmother, who was a traditional midwife.
Food, maybe I breastfeed her. When she started growing big, the food that I was cooking for them, I will take a portion and hide it somewhere. So when they come and take the food, I then feed my child.
Aisha also gave birth to a child in captivity.
It's only God who protect me because I used to pray day and night so that I could be rescued from that place. When I delivered my child, I thought I could lose my son.
When you look at your son, does that remind you of a very difficult part of your life?
A son is a blessing. He's like an angel. But sometimes I have to cry when I look at him. Yeah, because I went through a lot.
But not all women who end up in the camps have been kidnapped. I meet Sarah, who has also just returned from Somalia. Unlike Faith and Aisha, she had voluntarily gone with her husband, an Al-Shabaab fighter, but she has since left the group. Though she says she wasn't involved herself, she explains how Al-Shabaab captures Kenyan women.
So you come to them, you sometimes cheat them, and you tell them, I want to take you to work like where I was working. Those people who don't know, like those from rural areas, they agree. They said, okay, I want to go. No, you have a lot of money. Yes, I have a lot of money. Then you take them. So we tell them that we have to travel, then we hijack them to the forest.
As the wife of a fighter, Sarah's job was to clean the weapons. She was also taught to make bombs. She claims the group target women in order to breed the next generation of fighters.
In my camp, there are women who are sent to come and recruit other women, to take them to Somalia, to be in our camp, to multiply, so that they can get pregnant and have their own children.
Suraya Hersi is trying to understand the magnitude of the trafficking problem by speaking to different people in the community. But such information is hard to come by.
The biggest challenge that we have is with these women come back traumatized. The main reason why women don't come out to speak is because they also don't want to be shown by their own community that they come from. People fear the government. They fear that if I look like I'm associated with you and they know that you went to Somalia and came back, then they might say I'm also part and parcel of the same problem. Because unfortunately, anybody who went to Somalia, irrespective of how they went there, whether willingly or whether they were trafficked, they are being looked as they're guilty, or probably they're terrorists, or probably they're informants, or probably nobody trusts them. They don't know why they are back.
And that makes Salama Ali's work very difficult. There's a lot at stake.
The government does not know about the services I offer. I don't even want them to know. This will put our lives at risk. If the government discovers you have had contact with Al-Shabaab, you will be arrested, even killed. So we fear talking about this publicly. We fear for our security.
Despite the risks, Salama's secret mission is growing. She not only helps women who have managed to escape, but also an increasing number of families.
We are looking for a place where we can interview the families of missing girls. We try to go to their homes, but then they're afraid. They say that they don't want the community to know what's going on.
Elizabeth has agreed to meet us. Her sister disappeared over 2 years ago, tricked by a bogus agent who had promised her well-paid work in the Middle East.
My sister left here for Saudi Arabia in January 2015. She was going for work.
But she never made it. However, a month after she left, she was able to sneak a call to Elizabeth.
She sounded troubled and fearful. She told me she was afraid she would never see us again. I asked her what was wrong, and she said she was not in Saudi Arabia but in Somalia in an Al-Shabaab camp. She immediately disconnected. We tried to call back straight away, but we could not reach her. She called again and said she needed our help. She said she did not know how to get out. She pleaded for help, and then she disconnected. Since that time, we have never heard from her again.
Sorry.
We went looking for the agent that had tricked Elizabeth's sister, but he was nowhere to be found.
This agent rented office space right in the middle of town. Here, it's busy. Clearly, he wanted to look authentic. And for the duration of time he was open for business, we're not sure how many girls he was able to target. But we're told that as soon as Elizabeth's sister disappeared, he closed shop.
The lure of a well-paid job makes Kenyan women easy prey for traffickers. Now an ever-present danger on the coast next to Somalia. Sarah, the former wife of an Al-Shabaab fighter, told me how the militants specifically target Kenyans.
The 300 women in that camp I was living, mostly were from Kenya. Few were from Somalia, because in Kenya the security is very tight. When they use the Kenyans, it is easier for them to complete their missions. In Kenya, they want to bomb some places. Their main aim is just to kill, to finish this Kenya, to finish maybe the Africa.
Kenya has taken the battle to Al-Shabaab. In 2011, the Kenyan government sent their forces into southern Somalia, ousting the militants from all major towns and cities. Al-Shabaab's revenge was to hit back repeatedly on Kenyan soil. The deadly attack on the popular Westgate shopping mall in the heart of Nairobi shocked the world. 67 people were killed in the 4-day siege. And even more recently, the group inflicted the biggest ever defeat on the Kenyan army. The UN says at least 150 Kenyan soldiers were killed at a base in southern Somalia last year. Al-Shabaab is clearly Kenya's biggest security threat, and Soraya Hersi is in no doubt of the scale of the problem, whether from radicalization or the abduction and trafficking of women to Somalia.
I don't think anybody has any statistics. I want to believe even probably the government, they could be having their own ways of finding out, and I can assure you, almost every family is affected. You either know somebody or your neighbor has gone.
In the course of this investigation, I tried repeatedly to find out from the government what was being done to stop this trade in Kenyan women. But all attempts proved futile.
It has been very difficult and frustrating to get comment from the relevant government officials on this issue. It's the second time I've come to this office this week, and I've just been thrown out by the regional coordinator of security, the man in charge of security in this region. For Faith and her daughter, it's a long road back to a normal life.
It was really a hard time for her because she was used to the forest-like life, living like we were animals in the forest, because even when sleeping in the house, she didn't like it very much. So even when she feels sleepy, she comes to me, I carries her. I just make her sleep. When she sleeps completely, it's when I take her inside.
It's not just sleeping indoors that is new for her daughter. She's also wearing clothes for the very first time.
When she sees somebody passing with a certain type of shoes, now she just cries, also me, I want that one. So you can just go by, and when you come with it, you bring it to her. She just feels very happy, and she tries it.
Salama and her group share a special bond through similar tragedy.
Sometimes I call all the members of the group together to introduce a new member. We have a small party, and at the end, we introduce the new member. Then we journey together in the healing process. All those girls did not go there willingly. They were looking for money and hoping to get a good life. But actually what they got was sexual abuse.
Without any support for victims or increased awareness of the risks they face, vulnerable women on Kenya's coast remain easy prey. Until government and communities recognize the problem of trafficking, it seems that Al-Shabaab will continue to kidnap with impunity.
Some came back with babies, and some having contracted HIV and AIDS. Some even came back mad because of the trauma they were exposed to.
Because nothing was being done to help these women, Salama took it upon herself to train as a counselor. She set up a support group that meets in secret at undisclosed locations. The women talk of being tricked. They were promised jobs in other cities, but instead, they ended up as slaves of Al-Shabaab.
Those men used to come and have sex with me. I can't tell you the number. For those 3 years, every man was coming to sleep with me. You could have the same man maybe only twice. The rest of the time, he was sleeping with a different man.
I was cooking for a very big team, but I did not get to see them. Those who came for food had their faces covered, but you knew they were men because of their voices. I only got to see the...
These men call themselves the Lions of Allah. They boast of having no mercy. The women say they are responsible for kidnapping and abusing them. Allied to Al-Qaeda, Al-Shabaab are dedicated to creating a fundamentalist Islamic state in Somalia. The group has also carried out a string of attacks in neighboring countries, particularly Kenya. Amid these tensions, it's not easy to find out what's happening on the porous border between Kenya and Somalia. The densely wooded area is called the Boni Forest, and access is severely restricted. We are told we can see the trafficking routes from the air.
The canopy below is dense, and it's no doubt difficult to monitor this area. But from the air, we've seen several cut lines that we're told are routes the militants use for transport between Kenya and Somalia.
Back on the ground, locals on the Kenyan side of the border tell me the Boni Forest is used by Al-Shabaab. They've found remains of recently abandoned camps, and I'm told that women have been spotted being